Melvera was a beautiful noblewoman with graceful manners and a smile as gentle as spring sunlight. Yet behind that kind appearance lay a secret that made everyone fear her. She ate monsters. While others saw these creatures as deadly horrors, Melvera saw them as ingredients waiting to be cooked. Her strange passion earned her the nickname the Voracious Villainess, a title whispered among nobles with both disgust and scorn. Isolated and misunderstood, Melvera had long accepted that no one would ever truly understand her unusual tastes. Until one fateful banquet when she met a man whose blood-stained sword and fearless gaze changed everything. On a peaceful morning, Melvera is sitting calmly on a park bench enjoying what looks like the perfect sandwich. She eats it so blissfully that an older man passing by can't help but stop and stare. The sight is oddly mesmerizing. Every bite she takes seems to fill her with pure satisfaction. Curious, man strikes up a conversation, and Melvera, being as polite as she is peculiar, offers to share her food. He accepts, though maybe a little too eagerly, and takes a huge bite. Immediately, his eyes light up. The flavors are rich, complex, and balanced in a way he's never tasted before. It's so good that he blurts out that he could eat this forever. But then, casually, he asks what kind of meat it is. Melvera smiles and calmly replies, "Backhorn." And at that very moment, his face turns pale. Backhorns, those are deadly monsters, infamous for their lethal poison. Realizing what he's just eaten, the man suddenly doubles over and vomits. He can't comprehend how anyone, especially a noblewoman, could possibly eat something so dangerous. Unless she's that woman he's heard rumors about. Meanwhile, Melvera simply continues eating completely unbothered. To her, even the most ferocious beasts can be turned into a delicious meal if prepared correctly. She doesn't expect others to understand, but deep down, she believes that someday someone will. The very next day, Melvera attends a grand banquet hosted for the nobles. The hall is magnificent, filled with glittering chandeliers and tables overflowing with exquisite dishes. Melvera, as always, is enjoying herself, sampling everything she can, when a familiar woman approaches. It's Mrs. Talbot, her stepmother's attendant. With a stern expression, Mrs. Talbot reminds her of the real reason she's there. Melvera's cheerful smile instantly fades. The banquet isn't just about celebrating the harvest, it's also a social event for nobles to meet potential partners. As the daughter of a count, Melvera is expected to find a suitable fiancé. Her stepmother has threatened to send her to a convent if she fails this year. Even her father, trying to be lenient, said he'd accept anyone, even a mere knight, so long as they're decent. Reluctantly, Melvera decides to play along. But as she scans the hall, she notices the nobles whispering behind her back. Their glances are cold, their gossip merciless. That's when she realizes none of them want anything to do with her. Her reputation as the woman who eats monsters has already spread too far. Feeling disheartened, Melvera drifts away from the main crowd and heads toward the area where the knights are gathered. Maybe she thinks someone there won't recognize her. But before she can even approach them, chaos suddenly erupts. A monstrous roar echoes through the banquet. Guests scream as tables overturn and chandeliers shake. Out of nowhere, an enraged creature bursts into the area, a mad backhorn. In the midst of the confusion, Melvera spots an elderly couple who have fallen and can't get up. Without hesitation, she rushes toward them, urging them to escape. But before they can move, the backhorn looms over them, its eyes glowing with madness. Her instincts tell her to run. But seeing the couple's terrified faces, Melvera makes a split-second decision. She shouts, waving her arms, drawing the beast's attention toward herself instead. The monster charges straight at her. And just when it's about to strike, its head suddenly flies off. Standing before her is a man with a blood-stained sword, his expression calm yet terrifying. Whispers rise among the onlookers. He's the blood-mad Duke Roger. His reputation is as fearsome as the monsters he slays. Roger's unusual eyes lock with hers, and for a moment time seems to stop. Melvera stares, not in fear, but in quiet awe. Yet Roger mistakes her expression, assuming she's terrified of him. But instead of shrinking back, Melvera gracefully stands and introduces herself with proper noble etiquette. Roger pauses, surprised that she's still following social manners right after almost dying. He asks if she's hurt, but Melvera's attention is fixed elsewhere, on him. There's blood splattered across Roger's face, and she looks genuinely concerned. She immediately tells him to wash it off. She explains, almost like a teacher, that mad backhorn blood carries magical toxins. It can cause fever or terrible stomach pain if it's absorbed through the skin. Then she adds, almost casually, that if the beast wasn't mad, its meat and blood could have been used to make sausages. Roger blinks, speechless. No one has ever spoken to him like this before. When Melvera insists that he clean himself at once, Roger doesn't get angry. He's intrigued. He notices how calmly she talks about monsters as if they're just ingredients. She quickly apologizes, worried she said too much, but Roger just hands her a vial of purified water and points out that she might have gotten blood on her too. When he sees her gown soaked in red, he takes her hand gently, saying she should change into clean clothes. Melvera protests that the stains can come out easily with water, but Roger seems far more worried about her than the dress. Then, without thinking, she mentions she butchered a monster last week and got covered in even more blood back then. Roger freezes, completely caught off guard. When he asks for her name again, Melvera introduces herself formally, and that's when he bursts into laughter. He's finally realized who she is, the infamous noblewoman who eats monsters, the voracious villainess. In this world, magical beasts and strange plants, collectively called monsters, are feared by all. Their blood and flesh contain toxins that can make a person violently ill. But Melvera is the exception. Instead of fearing them, she's fascinated by their culinary potential. And as she stares at the slain backhorn before her, she can't help but think it actually looks delicious. Her innocent remark leaves Roger momentarily speechless, and when she awkwardly smiles to hide her embarrassment, it unexpectedly flusters him. When she asks what's wrong, he just clears his throat and composes himself, taking her hand once again. That's when Melvera realizes this man isn't afraid of her for eating monsters. Not one bit. As they walk together, Roger suddenly asks if backhorn meat really tastes good. It's such a casual question that Melvera almost laughs. Still, she admits softly that it's delicious, similar to beef, though tougher. She explains how she tenderizes it and removes the magical toxins. Instead of reacting with disgust, Roger listens carefully, fascinated. It's the first time anyone has taken genuine interest in her knowledge. Overwhelmed, Melvera lowers her head, hiding her tears. She explains her process, using special tools and purification spells to safely draw out the toxins. Roger's eyes light up, and he immediately asks if she could prepare a monster dish for him someday. Melvera is startled. She warns that only people with strong constitutions can eat it, but Roger just grins, clearly excited. Before long, he brings her to his pavilion where his aide, Chaos, greets them. Roger tells Chaos to bring Melvera fresh clothes and water to wash up. As she steps into the tent, she notices rows of weapons and the faint scent of iron in the air. Roger has even prepared a tub of warm water for her, but insists she should wash first. Instead, Melvera insists he go ahead. And without a second thought, Roger removes his upper clothing. Melvera freezes. She's seen knights and hunters bathe outdoors before, but this feels different. Her eyes, no matter how hard she tries, won't look away. Roger glances over, asking if something's wrong. Flustered, Melvera admits honestly that his physique is good. Roger seems genuinely surprised by that. He doesn't even realize how imposing he looks. When he resumes washing, Melvera gathers her courage and asks if he could teach her to fight monsters. Roger doesn't say no, but after glancing at her slender arms, he suggests that maybe she should just leave the slaying to him. She looks slightly disappointed, and realizing his mistake, Roger quickly explains that he only means he's more used to fighting. Then he changes the subject, asking if there's a particular kind of monster she'd like to try eating. Immediately, Melvera's eyes sparkle. Roger's territory is filled with rare creatures not found anywhere else. What others see as dangerous, she sees as a culinary adventure. While talking, Roger notices a streak of dried blood on her cheek and gently wipes it away. In return, Melvera carefully helps wash his face, her fingers brushing through his hair. For a brief moment, the world feels still between them. Then, Chaos bursts in, horrified. He scolds Roger for standing half-naked in front of a count's daughter, calling it completely inappropriate. Later, Melvera changes into a stunning gown borrowed from the queen. Roger, meanwhile, casually holds the severed monster head like it's a trophy. Melvera, amazed by his strength, blurts out that she wishes she could slay beasts too. Chaos watches silently, thinking that perhaps his master has finally met his match. That evening, Roger escorts Melvera back to her carriage. She thanks him with a curtsy, and though they part ways, both clearly wish they could stay longer. Before she leaves, Roger promises to slay a royal noodle for her next time. Melvera's eyes light up, and she gently reminds him that it would taste even better if captured alive. That makes Roger grin. It's a challenge he's eager to accept. Before leaving, Melvera gave Roger a gift, jerky made from a creature called the scatsbit. Without hesitation, Roger took a bite, much to Chaos' horror, since the food hadn't been tested for poison. But Roger didn't care. He loved it. In fact, he even made Chaos try some too. Soon, both men were happily munching away, and Melvera could hardly believe it. For once, someone truly enjoyed her cooking instead of judging her for it. When Roger told her that he was looking forward to tasting more of her monster dishes, her heart nearly burst. No one had ever said that to her before. She hid her face, pretending to wipe away tears, and said it was only because she hated saying goodbye. Roger smiled softly, pretending to believe her. As they parted ways, he promised that they would meet again soon. And for the first time, Melvera actually looked forward to the next banquet, not for the food, but for the man who made her feel loved and appreciated. Because maybe, just maybe, she had finally found someone who understood her. Snow has already fallen across the March Raid lands when Melvera finally returns from her travels. But before she can even step inside her home, her father, Ghislaine, is already waiting outside, waving her over with a furious expression. Melvera immediately assumes he's angry because she still hasn't found a suitable fiancé. But it turns out that isn't the reason at all. Ghislaine reveals that he's received a letter, not from some local noble, but from Duke Roger himself. At first, Melvera thinks it must be a mistake, maybe a request for help. But Ghislaine clarifies that it's an actual marriage proposal. The news stuns them both. A duke asking for the hand of a woman from such a humble household? It seems almost impossible. Ghislaine is flustered, and Melvera can only sweat nervously, wondering what could have led to this. Meanwhile, in a distant pavilion tent, Duke Roger meets with Crown Prince Maxim. The two discuss their recent monster hunt. Roger reports how he executed the mission perfectly, avoiding any casualties. Maxim listens, clearly satisfied, though something about Roger's tone feels off. While Maxim speaks casually, Roger's words are stiff and formal. It hadn't always been like that. Years ago, Roger used to call him Brother Maxim. But 17 years earlier, everything changed. Maxim was named Crown Prince, while Roger was adopted into the Galber family. Since then, an invisible wall has separated the two brothers. Maxim still treats him warmly, but Roger insists on distance. Trying to ease the tension, Maxim notices the basket Roger is carrying and asks what's inside. Roger tries to hide it, but Maxim is persistent. He somehow already knows about Roger's growing connection to Melvera, and when he mentions her name, Roger's calm mask cracks. Before Roger can react, Maxim snatches a piece of jerky from the basket and takes a bite. He's immediately impressed by the taste and asks what kind of meat it is. Roger answers that it's made from scatspit, a spiny monster. Maxim, intrigued, guesses that Melvera prepared it. When he sees how fondly Roger talks about her, he teases him, asking what his next move will be. But Roger avoids the question entirely, saying he'll remain on standby. He quickly leaves before Maxim can press further. As Roger walks away, frustration rises in his chest. Maxim's teasing hits too close to the truth. Because yes, it's rare for Roger to feel this drawn to anyone. But Melvera's image won't leave his mind. He remembers her from the banquet, the so-called voracious villainess who'd selflessly shielded an old couple from danger. That single act overturned everything he heard about her. Soon after, one of his subordinates, Chaos, approaches with news that the monster habitat is now secure. Roger nods, pleads, and relays Maxim's orders. But Chaos seems more interested in teasing him, asking if Melvera will be at their next banquet. Roger immediately suspects that Chaos was the one who told Maxim about her, though Chaos denies it quickly. Once left alone again, Roger's thoughts drift back to her tears, her hesitation, and the quiet loneliness he'd sensed beneath her calm smile. That's when he silently vows he'll never let her wear that expression again. Back at home, Melvera still can't believe that letter is real. Ghislaine tells her it arrived a week ago, delivered by a messenger riding a magnificent blaze eagle adorned with a jewel bearing the Galber crest. Melvera regrets not seeing the bird herself, and even Ghislaine admits how beautiful it was. But he quickly steers the conversation back to the proposal, wanting to know what exactly happened between her and the Duke. Melvera tells him everything honestly, how she met Roger at the banquet, how they spoke briefly about monster meat, but Ghislaine still finds it hard to believe that a single meeting led to this. Reading the letter again, Melvera herself begins to doubt its sincerity. Maybe Roger has another motive. Ghislaine agrees and decides to draft a careful reply, perhaps one that politely declines. That night, after her bath, Melvera sits at her desk and picks up the letter again. Her father's words echo in her mind. It was only one meeting. She sighs, tracing the Duke's name with her finger, and wonders if they were both simply carried away by their shared fascination with monster creatures. But then a thought occurs to her. Maybe Roger has no one to share his strange interests with, just as she doesn't. The realization makes her chest tighten with a mix of sympathy and curiosity. Then suddenly, the letter glows faintly. New lines appear on the page. Roger writes that he'll personally visit her on the 18th of Sirius. Melvera blinks, startled, and rushes to her father. Together, they realize with horror that the 18th is tomorrow. That night, Melvera can't sleep. She paces her room, flustered and anxious, holding a framed photo of her late mother. Speaking softly to it, she tells her mother about the proposal and wonders if the Duke will appreciate all types of meat the way her mother once did. Her thoughts drift to childhood, to those cold days when she stood beside her mother on their barren lands, learning to cook, learning to study monsters, inheriting her mother's research and passion. She's still chasing that dream, to prove that even monster meat can nourish people if treated properly. The next morning, Melvera is startled awake by a knock on her door. Her stepmother, Celia, walks in, frowning at the mess. She scolds Melvera for being lazy, for not taking her duties as a noblewoman seriously, and for still having no fiancé. She even brings up Roger, warning that despite his rank, he's infamous for being a violent, bloodthirsty duke. Before Melvera can respond, a thunderous sound fills the air. The cries of dragons echo from above. Melvera rushes to the window, and what she sees takes her breath away. Dozens of dragons soar through the sky, and at their head rides Duke Roger himself, majestic and commanding. Celia is horrified and tells Melvera to shut the window immediately, but Melvera refuses. Instead, she leans out and tells Roger to wait for her in the northern pastures for a proper discussion. Without hesitation, he nods and flies off. As soon as he's gone, Melvera's face turns bright red. She hides behind the curtain, heart racing uncontrollably. Celia calls her name several times before finally announcing she's leaving, claiming she feels unwell. Melvera tries to convince her to stay for the meeting, but Celia refuses, saying Ghislaine's presence is enough. Before leaving, she throws one last insult, calling Roger's arrival on a dragon disgraceful. But this time, Melvera doesn't hold back. She boldly declares that she will accept the Duke's proposal. Furious, Celia storms out. Later, in the northern pastures, Melvera finally meets Roger face to face. Though she tries to act composed, she can't hide her nervousness. Soon, Chaos joins them, apologizing for the sudden visit and explaining that Roger could no longer wait for her answer. As they talk, Roger suddenly grows serious. He steps closer, takes a strand of her hair, and examines it with genuine curiosity, wondering why it's so soft. Melvera, embarrassed, insists it's just messy from the wind. Roger chuckles quietly, then gestures to a large sack nearby. That, he says, is his gift to her. Melvera blinks in disbelief when he opens it. Inside lies a monster, just as he promised her before. Her eyes light up instantly. She can barely contain her excitement as she thanks him again and again. When he lifts the cover completely, she gasps. It's a golden moodle, a rare horned creature with radiant fur. Most moodles are white, prized for their pelts but rarely eaten. Yet this one glows like sunlight. Melvera immediately begins explaining everything she knows about it. Its diet, its habitat, how its meat becomes tender during winter, how valuable its fur is for clothing. Roger listens, clearly fascinated. Then, without saying a word, he gently takes her hand and places it over the creature's chest. She feels a heartbeat. It's still alive, merely asleep under magic. Her mind bursts with ideas, recipes, experiments, research plans, and her heart races with joy. She can barely stop smiling. This isn't just a gift. It's a sign that he truly understands her passion. Just then, Ghislaine arrives with his men. He greets the Duke formally, and the two begin discussing the proposal. As they talk, Melvera asks her father to allow Roger's dragons to rest and hunt in the nearby mountains. But Ghislaine misunderstands, thinking the moodle is meant to feed them. When he learns that it's actually for her, he's stunned. To his surprise, Roger already knows about Melvera's unusual hobby. Melvera adds that he's even eager to taste her cooking, and that she hopes to build a new research facility with his support. Ghislaine hesitates, unsure what to make of it, until Roger speaks firmly. He says he understands Melvera completely, both her habits and her reputation, and he accepts all of it. Hearing that, Ghislaine softens. He can tell the Duke's interest is genuine. Still, Roger reminds them that the moodle is alive and needs to be handled quickly. Ghislaine inspects the creature and admits it's both precious and dangerous. Since Roger wants to see how Melvera cooks it, Ghislaine gives his permission. He even orders her to guide Roger to her research facility. And so they set off together on Dragonback. For Melvera, it's her first flight, and the experience fills her with awe. Roger, noticing her amazement, jokes that she mustn't try to eat his dragons. As the research facility comes into view below, Melvera's voice trembles as she tells him to descend. The place is sacred to her. It once belonged to her late mother. And now, for the first time, she's bringing someone there. She feels nervous but determined. If Roger truly accepts her, her father will finally be at ease. At the facility, Roger immediately notices something unusual, a giant magic circle carved into the floor filled with ancient inscriptions. Melvera proudly explains that her mother originally designed it, but she's made her own improvements over the years. This, she says, is where they'll begin processing the monster they just captured. As Roger studies the carvings more closely, he realizes the circle was made to let Melvera absorb magical toxins from monsters. But even with all its complexity, it doesn't seem powerful enough to extract everything completely. So Melvera takes him deeper inside the facility to a sealed chamber where she keeps her other tools. There she retrieves a cloudy piece of quartz, an intricate crystal that can draw out both magical energy and blood. Roger is stunned by how finely crafted it is. Then, with calm determination, she turns to Roger and makes a bold request. She wants to see the decapitation technique he once used against monsters. Outside, the massive golden creature called the Mood has already been laid inside the ritual circle. Melvera prepares to begin her ceremony, but knows handling a monster of this size will be difficult. So she asks the knight for help. Roger raises his hand to signal his men, and they immediately move in to start dehairing the beast. He explains that his knights aren't just trained to slay monsters, they're also skilled in harvesting pelts, horns, and claws for resources. In fact, shaving fur is one of their specialties. Within minutes, the golden Mood is clean and ready. Melvera collects the thick golden fur and places her hand on it, her eyes gleaming with excitement, not only for the ritual, but also for the thought of all the delicious dishes she can create from this rare creature's meat. Meanwhile, Roger prepares to decapitate the monster. But before he can act, Melvera kneels beside the circle and recites a short prayer, her way of honoring the creature's life. Then, with a steady voice, she chants in the ancient magical tongue to activate the circle. Only then does Roger move. In one fluid motion, he draws his sword and slices through the monster's neck with breathtaking precision. Melvera can't help but be amazed by his flawless technique. After the beheading, she begins the extraction ritual. Holding the cloudy quartz, she recites another prayer. This time, the monster's blood slowly lifts into the air, swirling toward the crystal. As more and more of it flows inside, cracks suddenly appear on the quartz surface. It's never happened before. Panicked but unable to stop, Melvera struggles to maintain control. Roger quickly asks how he can help, and she orders him to fetch another quartz. Without hesitation, he rushes to grab one and replaces the damaged crystal. The moment he does, Melvera regains her composure and finishes the ritual. She recites the final chant, channeling every drop of her magic until the monster's essence is fully absorbed. But the process drains her strength, and she nearly collapses. Thankfully, Roger catches her just in time. When the ritual ends, the knights inspect the Mood's body. They'd expect it to be dried out or ruined, but to their surprise, it looks fresh and perfect. Melvera explains that her method only extracts the blood and magical energy, not the moisture. Keeping that moisture inside ensures the meat stays tender and flavorful. Roger, still impressed, asks where she learned such advanced methods. Melvera smiles faintly and credits her late mother. She tells him about what happened 17 years ago during the Great Drought when her homeland suffered from famine and infertile soil. To save her people, her mother began researching ways to turn monsters into safe, edible meat. That research, Melvera says, saved countless lives. And after her mother's death, she vowed to continue her legacy. But she admits with a small laugh that lately she's also been doing it simply because she enjoys the taste of rare creatures. Curious, Roger then asks what she does with the magical energy she extracts. She casually answers, it's mostly used for fire, good enough to power cooking or lighting for 2 months straight. Roger can't help but burst into laughter. Her innocent use of something so powerful is almost absurd. He gently explains that this energy, if misused, could destroy entire nations. Melvera freezes, realizing she's never thought about it that way. Roger's tone softens. He assures her that while rumors may spread, his duty is to protect her from anyone who would misuse her work. His words deeply move her. But then, with a teasing grin, Roger brings up another rumor that she drinks monster blood. Surprised, Melvera blushes and quickly denies it. Roger only grows more serious, staring into her eyes and declaring that he'd lay down his life for her. Embarrassed, she calls him out for joking, but he insists he means it. Flustered, she blurts out a few compliments in return, praising his eyes, his hair, even his cape. The air grows awkward between them, until chaos breaks the moment. Melvera clears her throat and quickly changes the topic, saying they should start preparing the meat. Outside, Roger's dragons are already restless, waiting for food. Just then, Melvera arrives with the official hunting permit they'll need to enter the mountains. Roger laughs, saying his dragons have been complaining about their boring meals lately. But before he can say more, his own stomach growls loudly. The scent of the royal mood's meat is just too tempting. So, Roger and Melvera decide to sneak in a little taste test before the others arrive. They slice off the rarest cuts and prepare a small grill. Roger even pulls out a bottle of special herbs he secretly took from the royal chef. Melvera takes a small taste of it and melts with delight at the rich flavor. Laughing, they remind themselves this is just a test, not them stealing food. They sprinkle the herbs, then use the monster's own magical blood to light the flame. As the meat cooks, Roger impatiently complains, "It smells too good to wait." But before they can eat, Chaos, one of the knights, spots them and immediately accuses the pair of sneaking snacks together. Roger frantically denies it, but the situation looks obvious. Trying to change the subject, he gives Chaos the hunting permit and tells him to feed the dragons instead. Chaos laughs and points out that the dragons are starving while their commander is secretly grilling meat. Eventually, Roger gives him a skewer, but the rest of the knights suddenly show up too, demanding their share. Melvera can't help but smile and gives her approval. Soon the knights gather around, laughing and cooking together. When the first skewer is ready, Chaos insists on tasting it, first to test for poison. Roger argues, but Melvera finally lets Chaos have the first bite. The moment he chews, his eyes widen in pure joy. He praises the flavor over and over, saying it's tender, rich, and perfect for pairing with wine. Melvera beams with pride. Hearing that, Roger can't wait any longer. He asks if Chaos feels any strange effects, but magical toxins usually take time to show. Still, Roger declares that the test is good enough and tells everyone to dig in. Melvera laughs and assures them she's already prepared medicine in case anyone gets sick. And just like that, the group erupts into cheerful shouts as they feast. Everyone's amazed. The meat is unbelievably delicious, nothing like the tough, bitter monster meat they've eaten before. Roger compliments Melvera again, saying he never imagined monsters could taste this good. She humbly replies that it's all thanks to her mother's research. The knights beg her to teach them her methods and even talk about bringing back another beast to practice. But she reminds them that eating monsters is still considered taboo. Later, as everyone relaxes, Melvera quietly calls Roger into her laboratory. The moment he steps inside, he's stunned by the sheer number of books and neatly arranged materials. Even the monster spines are sorted by size and color. Her meticulousness only deepens his admiration. While she prepares tea, he learns that she often hunts monsters alone. He's shocked. Surely the Count or someone should be helping her. But Melvera explains that most people in her land disapprove of her work. Many still follow old animist beliefs and see eating monster meat as sacrilege. Despite that, she continues her mother's research, even when the very people who once benefited from it now pretend they never touched monster meat during the famine. Roger, curious, asks why she keeps going in a world that refuses to understand her. She recalls the tragedy from 17 years ago, the same event that led to Roger's adoption by the Galber family. To continue their conversation, he gently guides her to sit on the couch, telling her she doesn't have to look at him if it's too hard to speak. He just wants to listen. After all, he came out only for research, but to propose to her. He already knows that society looks down on her, but he doesn't care. He tells her she can continue her research freely under his protection. Melvera hesitates, thinking he's only interested in her work. But Roger interrupts, saying the only thing he truly wants is to understand how she feels about him. For a moment, she's speechless. That's when she realizes, when Roger said he wanted to understand her, he wasn't talking about her experiments, but her heart. Melvera completely panics when she realizes this. Scrambling for an answer, she blurts out that she doesn't find him scary at all. In fact, she thinks he's rather handsome. Her words immediately make Roger blush, leaving Melvera worried that she might have said something wrong. She keeps talking, insisting that plenty of people would probably agree with her. But Roger only looks away in embarrassment, which confuses her even more. As she continues praising every detail of his looks, Roger struggles to believe she's being sincere. After all, he's a monster slayer. People are supposed to fear him, not admire him. Yet her eyes shine with pure admiration. She says she'll never forget how bravely he fought that monster during the banquet. Roger mutters that being covered in monster blood isn't exactly admirable or refined, but Melvera disagrees. To her, the courage to fight is far more noble than any fancy title. For a moment, silence falls between them, until Roger changes the topic and asks what she truly thinks of him as her fiancé. That question catches Melvera off guard. She's never seriously thought about it before. On paper, being engaged to him would be ideal. His title as a duke would easily fulfill her father's expectations. Yet their difference in status still worries her. Quietly, she imagines what life would be like by his side, seeing him from morning until night. Just the thought makes her heart flutter. But then she reminds herself how insignificant she might look next to him. Her life has always revolved around research, and all she's ever wanted is a partner who lets her live freely. She wonders if being with him would truly make her happy, or if that happiness would simply come from fulfilling a dream her father planned for her. After some thought, Melvera finally speaks. Instead of answering directly, she asks why he would choose her when so many noble women must already be after him. She wonders aloud if his people would ever accept someone like her, known as the voracious villainess, whose reputation could easily tarnish his name, but Roger shakes his head. He believes his people will accept her in time. He explains about the Ozame Woods, a vast forest within their lands that's overrun with monsters. No matter how many he slays, they just keep coming back. The magical toxins that drive the creatures mad, and protecting those lands has always been his duty. To him, monsters are enemies to destroy, so he's shocked when Melvera admits that she actually enjoys eating them. Watching her prepare monster meat completely changes his perspective. Soldiers sometimes eat monsters for survival, but none ever thought to drain the magical energy first like she does. Roger admits her method is brilliant. Still, Melvera isn't sure that's enough to win over his people. She starts reflecting on how her research might help him. How maybe her late mother's work could finally make a difference. But before she can say more, Roger interrupts her gently. He promises to protect her, to defend her from all the cruel rumors that had haunted her for years. He truly wants her research to flourish for the sake of his people's future. For a moment, Melvera doubts his sincerity, thinking his proposal might be purely practical. Yet after a pause, she admits that his offer could save her, even if she feels unworthy of him. Roger misreads her hesitation as rejection, but he's wrong. Melvera actually accepts his proposal with a bright, determined smile. She explains that while other women enjoy parties or fashion, her joy lies in research. Since his duty is to hunt monsters, she promises to cook delicious meals from his hunts so nothing goes to waste. She eagerly lists the ways she can support him, and by the end, she says she's truly honored to marry him. Her words make Roger blush, but before they can savor the moment, Claude appears at the doorway, announcing that the mansion is ready to receive them, and that Count Ghislaine is waiting. As they rise to leave, Claude quietly warns Melvera not to speak too openly about her research or the condition of Roger's lands in front of strangers. Roger overhears this and senses something off about Claude's tone, but he lets it go. After all, a duke proposing to a disgraced count's daughter would naturally raise suspicion. When Roger finally meets Count Ghislaine, he presents the official engagement contract. The Count's hand trembles with uncertainty. He can't tell if Roger truly wants to marry his daughter or if this is just politics. But Roger stands tall, proud of his decision. Even so, Ghislaine can't entirely forget the chaos of the banquet. Roger remembers it too, how all he cared about was slaying the monster. Yet Melvera never looked away, unafraid and steady. That moment convinced him she was different. He believes Melvera accepted him for who he truly is. The proposal may have happened faster than expected, but family pressure left him no choice. After some hesitation, Count Ghislaine signs the contract. His only concern is Melvera's strange habit of eating monsters, but Roger reassures him. It doesn't bother him at all. Before they part, Ghislaine asks a final question. Why would a Galbra, from a long lineage that rarely marries, suddenly seek a fiancé? Roger answers sincerely, listing every reason he admires Melvera. His words make Ghislaine laugh, though he quickly grows serious again. He explains that animism, the belief that all things have spirits, is deeply rooted in their lands. If things hadn't changed, he admits he would have sent Melvera to a convent for her own safety. As a father, all he wants is to keep her protected. Roger solemnly vows that she will be safe under his care, earning the Count's trust. 10 days later, Melvera busily prepares for her move to the Galbra lands. Her attendants help her pack her research tools while workers load the cargo. Under Roger's orders, everything related to her research will accompany her. The engagement has already been made official. As she finishes packing, Melvera recalls the contract signing with her father, a document imbued with faint magic. Roger had explained that the spell simply symbolized his vow, making their engagement unbreakable. Beneath all the formalities, what he truly wanted was to see her resolve. In that quiet moment, they shared a deep connection. But Count Ghislaine had one last secret, a truth Melvera doesn't know. After the signing, he privately confessed to Roger that he was the one who started the rumor about Melvera eating monsters. He did it to protect her, crafting that image so no one would exploit her research. Roger understood, but firmly asked him never to do it again. Back in the present, Melvara studies the glowing contract once more when her assistant Mullen reports that the cargo is ready. She gives him instructions, then sighs, realizing this is really happening. She wonders if other couples move in this quickly. But Roger had insisted winters are too long and he can't wait any longer. Melvara's eyes then wander to a photograph of her late mother, Elise. She quietly wonders how Elise must have felt on her own wedding day. Just then, her servant rushes in to say her father is waiting. Melvara takes one last look around her room, knowing she may not return for a long time. When she knocks on the study door, she's surprised to find her stepmother, Celia, sitting in her father's chair. Celia says it's only proper that she sees Melvara off, though she can't resist making snide comments about dragons. Melvara coldly asks where her father is, and Celia gestures outside. Before letting her go, Celia sneers again, accusing her of seducing the Duke. Melvara keeps her composure and politely replies that her loyalty now belongs to the Galber family. That calm answer only enrages Celia further. She begins comparing Melvara to her late mother, whom she admits she despised. Melvara is stunned. She never knew Celia even met her mother. But before she can ask more, Celia warns her. If she fails to marry the Duke, she'll be sent to a convent with no home to return to. Melvara leaves in silence. Deep down, she's used to Celia's bitterness, but hearing even a glimpse about her mother feels strangely comforting. Outside, her father greets her warmly. He notices her coat, the same one Elise wore on her wedding day. Smiling sadly, he reminisces about Elise's first snowfall, how excited she was, and how she caught a cold the next day. The memory brings tears to his eyes. But suddenly, a deep roar echoes from above. They look up and see a dragon descending from the clouds. It's Roger. Melvara rushes to meet him as he lands. He takes her hand, kisses it, and greets her as his betrothed, making her face turn crimson. Count Ghislaine chuckles while Roger smirks playfully, clearly enjoying her flustered reaction. After confirming that all her belongings are ready, Roger glances at a pile of discarded boxes nearby and casually offers to burn them. Then he declares it's time to take his fiancée home. Count Ghislaine watches as Roger helps Melvara climb onto the dragon's back. He hopes to see her again by spring, but Roger says he intends to keep her in his lands until the wedding. Even when Ghislaine offers to handle the preparations himself, Roger promises to provide everything. As the dragon takes off, Ghislaine watches them soar into the sky. Though uneasy, he knows his daughter is in good hands. Down below, Roger glances once more at the pile of rubbish, and with a flick of his hand, he sets it ablaze. The fire bursts into bright flames, drawing gasps from the servants. Claude protests that it's unnecessary, but Roger only smiles, saying he's free to join the Galber family if he wishes. Claude refuses, grumbling as the flames rise like fireworks. Meanwhile, high above the chaos, Roger and Melvara were still soaring through the skies. And even though Melvara felt a small tug of longing for home, she couldn't deny the excitement growing inside her. After all, she was heading toward Roger's land, toward a future she had never imagined. While they flew, Roger told her gently that she didn't need to force herself into anything. All she had to do, he said, was stay true to who she was. Her only duty as his lady was to bring him comfort. Melvara, unsure how to do that, admitted her hesitation. But Roger, calm and confident, reassured her. He promised she would have complete freedom to continue her research. And as if that weren't enough, he even offered to capture monsters for her experiments, something that immediately brightened her face. His men also seemed thrilled, remembering the dishes she once made using royal noodle meat. As she listened to him talk, Melvara began to truly realize just how kind and thoughtful he was. As the hours passed, the sky slowly turned into a warm crimson. Roger glanced at her hair and commented that it looked just like the glow of sunset. Embarrassed, Melvara tried to deny it, but Roger insisted that it was even lovelier when it shimmered with light, just like when she had activated her magic circle. Then with a soft smile, he patted her head. That simple touch left Melvara so flustered she could barely breathe. When night finally fell, Melvara noticed the faint glow coming from the dragon's horns. That soft luminescence helped them see each other clearly, even though the sky was pitch black. She wondered aloud if the people on the ground could see those lights too, maybe mistaking them for drifting stars sliding across the heavens. After several hours of flight, they eventually reached the port town of Air, a place under the king's rule. But that wasn't their true destination. Their real goal was Fort Ritterard, a simple outpost near the border where travelers often stopped to rest. Roger mentioned that they'd get Melvara a comfortable room in town, but to his surprise, she seemed more interested in whether the border had forests or rivers nearby. She didn't mind staying at the fort at all. What excited her most was the possibility of encountering new monsters. She talked excitedly about the fishtail monsters currently in their spawning season and the mysterious monster fruits rumored to grow in the forests. Roger tried to warn her that the fort was plain and purely functional, but her imagination had already taken off. She couldn't stop picturing rare creatures she had only read about, creatures she wanted to see, study, and maybe even taste. Amused, Roger laughed and admitted that there were actually some Xanas swimming in the river this time of year. Instantly, Melvara's eyes sparkled. Xanas didn't exist in her homeland. However, her excitement dimmed when Roger mentioned that setting traps would take some time. Wanting to cheer her up, he promised that they could still try to catch some that very night. With luck, they might even enjoy Xanas for breakfast the next morning. Melvara found herself growing more and more moved by Roger's warmth. She noticed how easily he went out his way just to make her happy. Remembering Chaos' words about how his men had always eaten very poor quality monster meat, she asked if it was true. Roger nodded, explaining that the meat they had eaten during long expeditions had been tough, rubbery, and barely edible. They had no choice but to roast it thoroughly to avoid getting sick, but even then it often caused stomach aches. Melvera immediately guessed they had never removed the magical toxins properly. Roger remembered trying countless types of monsters to find something safe, yet none had ever been suitable. He even admitted that he once collapsed from the toxins and barely remembered what happened afterward. Soon after, their dragon finally reached the fort. Roger told Melvera to hold on tightly as it descended. He guided it carefully downward until they landed safely. As his men arranged accommodations with the caretaker, they mentioned that their commander had brought a lady with him. The caretaker, shocked, quickly apologized, worried that their simple fort might not suit a noblewoman. Melvera peeked from behind Roger and tried to reassure him that she needed nothing fancy. Then Roger called her over so they could unpack what they needed for the night. As Melvera dug through her belongings, he suggested again that she stay in town, but Melvera had already made up her mind. She preferred the fort. Its plainness reminded her of her research facility, where she had often fallen asleep on the cold floor while working late into the night. Although Roger still seemed unsure, she smiled and told him she'd be perfectly fine as long as he was there. He showed her a small, modest room with a bed and a table. He insisted she rest after such a long flight, but Melvera said she still felt energetic. Then she caught a faint scent drifting through the hall. Curious, she followed it to the furnace room, making Roger nervous as he trailed behind her. Inside, 2 soldiers were cooking simple grain porridge. Startled by her sudden appearance, they froze, but Melvera warmly offered to help. She told them that plain porridge wouldn't fill anyone's stomach and unwrapped some leftover noodle meat. Seth hesitated, afraid the monster meat might be unsafe. But Mullen reassured him, saying Melvera herself had prepared it, and that no one had suffered even the slightest side effect. To prove it, Melvera grilled a small piece. She handed it to Seth, but he still eyed it with suspicion. Before he could refuse, Mullen stepped forward and volunteered to taste it himself. Delighted by the flavor, he began to describe it enthusiastically, until a dry, irritated voice interrupted him. Roger was standing in the doorway, clearly sulking. He asked if he could have a taste as well. Flustered, Melvera quickly took his hand and guided him closer to the furnace. She grilled a fresh piece for him and shyly asked if she could feed him. But Roger stubbornly refused to open his mouth. Exasperated, she remembered how her nanny used to feed her younger brother. Using that same tone, she playfully tried again, but he resisted. Finally, she realized what always worked on her brother, calling his name directly. So dropping all formality, she softly called Roger. Surprised, he looked at her, and she slipped the meat right into his mouth. He chewed slowly, then admitted that it tasted good. Seth, relieved, finally ate his portion as well and was pleasantly surprised. Overjoyed, Melvera suggested they mix the remaining meat into the porridge. Roger, however, was still sulking silently in the background. Later that night, everyone ate together, delighted by the improved meal. Melvera beamed when Roger asked how she had made it. She explained that she simply diced the meat, fried it lightly, and mixed it into the pot. Then, to her shock, Roger scooped a spoonful and fed her himself. Embarrassed, she tried to stop him, but he fed her until the bowl was empty. As they talked, he told her she should address him less formally, just like she did earlier when she called his name. Most engaged couples did, he said. Though it felt strange, Melvera knew she would eventually need to get used to it. Her cheeks burning, she said his name again. Amused, he suggested she give him a nickname instead. After thinking carefully, she chose to call him by his second name. At once, Roger's eyes began to glow faintly. He turned away, trying to hide it. Alarmed, Melvera cried for help. Mullen rushed in, but Roger explained that he had only lost control of his magic for a moment. Worried, Melvera wondered if the food had triggered it, but Mullen reassured her that Roger simply carried more magic than most people. Once he released some, he'd be fine. Roger confirmed this, adding that it was perfect timing since he planned to use that magic to catch Xana's the next morning. Even so, Melvera couldn't shake her worry. Mullen's explanation reminded her of her mother, how her mother's incomplete magic circle had prevented her from purging magical energy. It had built up inside her body until it poisoned her. Melvera remembered her mother's beauty whenever she performed magic, the glowing hair and jewel-bright eyes. That brilliance had inspired her own fascination with magic. Yet humans were fragile. Their bodies would break before their minds did if magic overloaded them. She had been powerless to save her mother back then, but now she silently vowed to complete her mother's research so she could protect Roger. When morning came, Melvera woke up wrapped in Roger's coat. The last thing she remembered was pacing around anxiously. Blushing, she realized he must have found her asleep on the floor and carried her to bed. She hurried out and found him sipping coffee. When she checked his condition, he simply pulled her gently into his arms. He pressed his forehead to hers to prove he had no fever. Her heart raced until she noticed his skin was ice cold. Smirking, he'd explained that he had fallen into the river while trying to catch Xana. Remembering his promise to catch Xana's for her, she felt guilty. She asked if he was really all right, but he insisted he was. Trying to warm him, she wrapped his coat around him again. Roger chuckled and said proudly that they had caught something she'd love. Still worried, she hesitated, but he pulled her closer, teasing that they should just go out like that to stay warm. And at that moment, she realized just how comfortably spoiled he had become around her, and how deeply she was already fallen for him. That morning begins with an unexpected discovery because when Melvira checks the metal net Roger set up the day before, she realizes the Xana's inside is somehow still alive, still thrashing, and still very much dangerous. But instead of being afraid, she gets excited. Since the creature survived the night, she decides this is the perfect moment to finally cook it. Although she tells Roger to take a break after working nonstop, he refuses to rest. Instead, he insists on helping her, saying that just being beside her is enough to make him feel better. His sudden honesty flusters her so much that when he hugs her from behind and reminds her that they're engaged and she should start getting used to things like this, all she can do is hide her face with her hands. Fortunately for her, Seth walks in at the worst or best possible time, giving her a chance to escape the awkward moment. Roger, however, still refuses to let go, forcing Seth to greet them awkwardly. Soon after, Melvira gathers everyone and cheerfully announces the plan. They're going to cook the Xanas. The men freeze in shock. She asks someone to grab flour and oil, and Seth volunteers immediately. After a short round of preparations, Melvira is finally ready to begin her cooking ritual. This time, she wants to draw her magic circles on oil paper instead of carving directly into the ground, since water from the Xanas would just wash everything away. Roger actually praises her idea, calling it clever. And by the time the sun is just beginning to rise, Roger orders his men to pull the Xanas out of the metal net. Before they do it, he reminds everyone that the creature is extremely dangerous. One mistake, he warns, can break bones. But Melvira, of course, watches with sparkling eyes as the soldiers tug and heave. After several strong pulls, the Xanas rises little by little until its massive body finally breaks the surface. When it's fully lifted out, Roger and Melvira step closer to examine it, and the sight astonishes her. It's enormous, far bigger, and more magnificent than the pictures in her textbooks. Roger guesses it must be 7 or 8 years old and explains that because it's the spawning season, these creatures tend to be aggressively violent. One look at its razor-like teeth makes Melvira instinctively imagine losing a limb, so Roger warns her not to get any closer. He lights up his hand with magic, preparing to end the creature quickly, but Melvira stops him. Since it's technically still a fish, she insists they should stun it first. She tries lifting the special sword forged by the Galbra blacksmith, fully intending to do the job herself, but it's far too heavy for her to even raise properly. Seeing her struggle, Roger gently takes the sword from her and reminds her of the promise he made during their betrothal that he would handle all the messy parts for her. Melvira agrees, and Roger steps forward. Since he's never killed a fish before, he asks Melvira to guide him, and she happily does. Her plan is simple: blind it first. When she covers the creature's eyes with a cloth, it immediately stops thrashing. Then she explains exactly where he must stab just behind the eye. Roger follows her instructions and delivers the blow with precision, yet killing the Xanas turns out to be tougher than either of them expected. Melvira tells him to twist the blade, but the creature's body is so durable that the sword refuses to move at first. Finally, after one last forceful twist, blood spills and the Xanas fall still. With the creature finally dead, Melvira begins the magical part. She spreads the oil paper sheets on the ground, kneels, and starts the ritual to extract magical toxins from the body. She whispers a respectful prayer first, as she always does, before chanting in the ancient arcane language. Gradually, the circles glow, then her body glows as well, and thick toxin begins to flow into the flasks. Even though the Xanas doesn't bleed much, their magical toxins are strangely heavy and dense. What unnerves her most is the way her hair stands on end every time she performs rituals like this. When the ritual ends, she hands the filled flask to Roger. The next step is cleaning. She decides it's safest to remove the head, tail, and scales, but she wants to learn how to do it herself, so she doesn't rely on Roger every time. Roger taps her head affectionately and tells her not to hesitate. He enjoys helping her, and cooking monsters together is genuinely fun for him. Hearing that warms Melvira's heart, especially because she spent years doing everything alone. Now, she has people willing to help. Melvira instructs the men on which parts to remove first. Roger asks for her guidance again, and she explains each step carefully. Though the angle is awkward, Roger lifts the heavy sword, his eyes flashing with magic, and with one clean strike, he chops off the head. Melvira proudly calls for Mullen to inspect the cut, boasting that Roger did it perfectly. Mullen agrees instantly, even admitting he's always admired the Duke's swordsmanship. This embarrasses Roger deeply, and Melvira can't help but laugh at how flustered he gets. With the sun now fully rising, Melvira tells them to take out the organs next. Since the organs and head are inedible, she asks Roger to dispose of them. He raises his hand, gathers fire magic, and burns the remains instantly. Mullen watches in awe and explains to the others that Roger invented this spell specifically to help people safely dispose of monster parts. Once everything is clean, they move to cooking. Since the kitchen inside the fort is too small, they decide to prepare the meal outdoors. Melvira agrees it will make cleaning much easier. Then she asks if anyone knows how to skin a fish, since Xana's flesh is soft and needs careful handling. Ambry volunteers, saying he works with delicate furs all the time, so he's pretty confident he can manage. Under her instructions, Ambry carefully skins the creature and slices the meat into beautiful portions. Even Melvira is amazed at how well he does it. She praises him and the rest of the men for their teamwork. She even hesitates to chop the pristine pieces, but Ambry assures her it's fine. Mullen, now ridiculously excited, encourages her to continue. Melvira lights 2 large pots, one for cooler oil and one for hotter oil. She explains that the Xanas will be fried twice for the perfect texture. Roger insists on helping, so she puts him in charge of the hotter pot. Then she mixes flour, water, and spices to prepare the batter. They dip the pieces into the mixture and place them gently into the cooler pot first. When each piece turns light golden, Melvira lifts it out with a wooden ladle and transfers it to the hotter pot to crisp up. That's how she plans to get the perfect Xanas. Everyone begins frying their own portions. Roger's first batch comes out darker than expected, and he looks crushed. But Melvira reassures him that nobody gets it perfect the first time and that his pieces are still edible. Then, to cheer him up, she teasingly asks him to feed her. Roger nearly chokes from embarrassment. But when she opens her mouth like an impatient child with her hands too sticky to feed herself, he carefully blows on the piece and places it in her mouth. The moment she bites down, she lets out a happy squeal. It's perfectly crispy and surprisingly delicious. Roger takes a bite from the same piece she ate, completely shocking her, but he acts as if it's the most normal thing in the world. When he tastes the properly cooked pieces, he's blown away. He hands one to her, and she gasps at how good it is. Both the crispier ones and the softer ones taste amazing, so they decide to make both versions. Roger calls Mullen over to try some, and the man lights up like it's the happiest moment of his week. They continue frying until every piece of meat is cooked. After finishing, Melvira thanks Roger, but he immediately worries that she's been standing too long. She tells him she actually had a wonderful time because he was with her. This makes Roger visibly proud. He reminds her they still need to move indoors for breakfast, and when she tells him to eat first, he resists until she calls Mullen, who drags the Duke away. Melvira begins cleaning the area, and Seth and Ambry quickly help her so they can all eat together. As thanks, she gives them a plate of oddly shaped pieces. It turns out to be grilled fish belly. They both take a bite, and the rich flavor surprises them. Ambry notes it would taste even better with sour fruit juice, and Seth remembers that the fruit is usually served at breakfast. Melvira urges them to hurry before the food is gone. Inside the great hall, the atmosphere feels like a small feast. Roger waves her over. Once she sits, he reminds her that after breakfast, they will fly again and should reach their lands by evening. He wraps a piece of fish in lettuce, takes a bite, and the sight amuses Melvira enough to mimic him. She's shocked at how fresh the combination tastes. Seth hands her a fruit called cabo, the sour fruit they mentioned earlier. She squeezes the juice over the food and takes a bite. The tanginess makes her shriek in excitement. Roger tries it too, even though he's never eaten cabo outside of drinks. The moment he tastes it, he yelps, but then pretends to be completely fine. Melvira quietly makes a mental note that he hates sour food. Still, Roger smiles and tells her meals are always better when he's with her. After eating, the men pack sandwiches for the upcoming flight, and the remaining Xana's meat is frozen and salted for storage. Before they take off, Roger reminds his men to stay alert during the journey. Once they're airborne, he turns to Melvira and tells her to prepare herself. Ahead of them lie the Galber lands, and deep down, Melvira can't help feeling thrilled because she's about to step into a whole new world. That marks the end of today's anime recap. If you enjoyed the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach a current goal of 10K subscribers.